Hello and welcome to Scraped on Site. It's an experiment I've been running in order to show how to scrape sites using command line. So I'm maintaining a GitHub repository called Scraped on Site, and through this repository you guys can request sites to be scraped. So let's assume there's a request here for scraping a site. It's a site for foreign exchange for currency rates, and the request says we get the monthly exchange rate for a specific year between the US dollars and all other currencies, and this is the URL for the site. So let's open the site. It looks like a form of some sort. So let's first see if the site is accessible using a simple URL request. And so I'm copying the URL for the site and opening a terminal window where we will do most of our processing, and I will open it full screen. So to fetch the site, we can use curl in silent mode, -s, and this would spew out the site's HTML. Seems like it's accessible. I'm using the command clear to clear the screen. So back to the site. Site has a selection of the source and destination currency, range of dates, and monthly average selection. Output format is CSV. So let's set up the site first. Let's go from January 1st to 2021 to December 31st, 2021. Monthly average, CSV, and before we hit retrieve, let's already open up the inspect panel and look at the network panel where we would see all the requests are going to the network, and let's press the minimized version to fetch it. So we see an URL getting fetched here, and just let's verify that we can access this URL as well. So we're going to copy the link address, and this would be the result now. So curl -s. This seems like something we can work with. So it has, we run it through word count, it has 13 lines, one line of heading, and 12 lines of data, one for each month. So now let's try to automate this process. Our goal is to retrieve these 12 lines for all currencies against, let's say, the US dollar. So first we need a list of all currencies. Let's see how we can obtain it. So site has a drop-down with all the currencies. So let's see if we can inspect for this element, and we can see its location on the HTML, and we will copy its XPath. This is its address within the HTML. And since we already fetched that page, we can pipe it using the vertical bar inside xmllint, which will allow us to execute the XPath query. And we have to tell it it's an HTML. This is the XPath query, and this last minus tells it we're getting the input from the standard input, which is being fed by this curl. So let's execute it, and we're getting nothing. This is because the XPath coming from home has the T-body element, which is superfluous, it's not needed. So let's erase it. So now we're getting the drop-down HTML with all the currencies as options. So let's refine our XPath by adding option. So now we're getting all the options, but the real name of the currency is inside an attribute called value. So attributes in XPath are using the @ This is almost there. Now we want to get rid of everything except the name of that currency. It's within 2 quotes. So if we treat the quote as delimiter, we would be asking for the second field, because the first field would be everything up to this quote, and the second field would be here. So the command cut can be used. Cut with a delimiter of a quote and field number 2. This is wonderful. Now we have the list of currencies. Let's see how many currencies we have. Word count. We have about 200. So this is quite a nice tool we built here. Let's try to save it inside the shell script, which is a way of encapsulating it into a file, the command itself, so we can go back to it. So let's copy this command and open a new file called list. This name is something worth picking. So curl -s followed by xmllint and followed by cut. Now you can see every vertical pipe is a new command. It would be nice that each one of them would be on a separate line. So let's do a global replace by searching. This syntax is similar to sed. Searching for vertical bar. I would even say vertical bar in space, and replace it by a line break, a new line, a tab, vertical bar, and a space. We'll do it globally. So now we have curl followed by xmllint followed by cut. Save this thing. And in order to execute it, we need to change its mode to be executable, +X. So now we can do list. Wonderful. Now this is the list of currencies. Next we have to find a way to get and clean the data for a specific currency pair. So we already tried to get this data beforehand. Here we go. So this is the data we're looking for. And let's try to clean it up. First, it would be nice to get rid of this line because it's not really a column heading. It's just informational. So we want to get rid of the first line, meaning we want to get everything from the second line and on. The tail command is very nice for doing that. Tail -n +2. So now we have 12 lines. Next, we see the delimiter here that's not very consistent with CSV and conventions. We'd like it to be a comma. And we also like to separate this field into 2 fields, the month and the year. So we would like to replace these 2 delimiters into commas. We can use sed to do that. So sed. We want to search for either semicolon or a slash and replace it by comma. It's nice. So now we want to get rid of all these fixed strings because they're not really meaningful. So we would like to select fields 2, 3, and then 5, 7, 9. So we can do this using cut again. The delimiter is comma. We want field 2, 3, 5, 7, 9. Nice. So this looks like clean data now. And let's transfer it again to a command. Maybe we'll call it values. And do our replace to sort of get it to be a single command per line. And if we now change the mode to executable for these values, we can execute values. These values are not very general because they are converting GBP to euro. So we'd like to convert between arbitrary currencies. So let's replace this by command line arguments. So we will do two arguments. First argument will replace C1 and second argument will replace C2. So it's $1 and $2. So now we can do values with arguments, USD to GBP. Wonderful. Still, we would like to refine it because this will eventually be part of one spreadsheet or CSV file which will contain many currencies. So we would like to add currency information to the line. So let's add two columns in the beginning that are specifying the currencies that we're working with. So we'll add one more command using cell. We will replace the start of the line with the first parameter followed by the second parameter followed by a comma. Now this syntax is cryptic, somewhat cryptic, because it alternates between quoting using a single quote and then letting go of the quoting mechanism here and then getting back on it. But for now, just take it as it is. So now we have two additional columns. This is nice. So now we want to connect the two tools we created, the list, which generates the list of currencies, and feed it into the values where maybe the second parameter would be fed from the list. Okay, so we would do this using a loop. So first we would execute the list. It will generate the list of currencies. We will then read a line into a variable called p, and then initially let's just write this variable back to the output. So we will see the basic mechanism first. So while reading into p, reading a value, a line, a currency, we will simply echo it out. So this will give us the list of currencies again. Great. But instead of just printing the currency, we will print values, USD, and P. So here we have generated command lines because each of these command lines can be executed and will give us results. So our script is generating a list of command lines, and we would just execute all of them. So we would pipe it into shell as a way of executing it. So this is already automating. You can see that the second currency is rolling. This is nice. So using our methodology, let's put this in a script. We'll call it scrape and apply our pretty printing. And just to beautify it and to make it more process compatible with other tools, let's add a columns line. So we're going to echo from column to column. We're naming the columns here. This would be month, year, average, minimum, and maximum. So let's give it a go. Scrape. We have to change the mode to be able to execute the script, and then execute it into less. Less is a tool that shows us one screen full of data. So we have a column line and then data. This is beautiful. So as a last step, we want to pipe this into a file, of course. So we can pipe this into an output file called CSV. This is going to be a little bit strenuous to wait for it. So another alternative is to, because it does take time until the site responds, pipe it into a tool called T, which is like a splitter. It will write it into output.csv, but also write it to the standard output so we can see it. So now if we execute, we're able to see its progress, and the file is being written at the same time. And if we watch closely the second argument, we can see the progress of the variables of the currency. So we're at the letter K now, so we'll wait patiently for this to be over. And then inspect the output and see what we got. So this is now finished. I will clear the screen, list the files in the folder. Oh my, I've done this in the wrong folder, but there's the output CSV here. And if I word count the output CSV, it has 2,500 and so lines. If I less it, it is indeed what we're looking for. So essentially we have established what we set out to do, which is to automate the scraping. Let's now just move the things we've done into a separate folder. So I'm creating a folder, and then I'm moving a list, values, scrape, and output into TMP scrape. And then we can go down and sort of look at these files on their own. So this has been a demonstration of how to scrape a pretty simple HTML site and create a loop that goes over values, and eventually we arrived at the CSV that we wanted. If you'd like to scrape other sites, please feel free to find this repository and create an issue with your request. Thank you so much, and enjoy scraping.